Hi, my name is Gwendolyn, and I will be going over this week's Unit 4 comparison of the two articles, as well as going against MRIs for ACL tears. One of the articles was the functional ultrasonography and diagnosis of ACLs versus, compared, to magnetic resonance imaging. And then the second article was diagnostics, accuracy of dynamic ultrasound imaging in partial and complete ACL tears. And so from the findings within these articles, and then also based on my own experience of tearing my ACLs, I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. So I had both of my surgeries in Tennessee, and living in Tennessee, I live in the United States. I tore my ACL my first time. I was a sophomore in high school, and I believe I was in 2013. And then I tore my second one my sophomore year in, not my sophomore, my junior year in college. So within that time frame, I had not known about ultrasounds being an option to be a tool as a diagnosis for my ACLs. For those that don't know, in order to get an MRI, you have to be recommended. You can't just go and have an MRI. You have to have some type of pre-screening before your MRI. Just the way in the United States, at least in Tennessee, it may be different in other states and countries, but here, that, in my personal experience, that's what I had to go through. MRIs are very expensive, and it's something that so MRIs are something that's very expensive for those even with insurance. I was lucky enough that I had like 3 different health insurance. I had it through my school, and in college when you tear ACLs, because you're on a team sport, your college handles that, and then if there is any, it's actually your parents or whatever health insurance you do have, that's secondary. So anything outside of that cost then gets covered through you. But in high school, we had health insurance through my high school, my dad, and my mother. So nothing, luckily for me and my parents, was paid out of cost. With that being said, still very expensive, but the ultrasounds, especially just in cost, that alone is a really big benefit and plus. So in the methodology for the diagnostics of accuracy of dynamic ultrasound imaging, so there is actually still a very good high probability of being able to diagnose full ACL tears, having an 88 percentile range, but for partial tears, it's only 52. Personally, I don't think that I would risk a partial tear diagnostics, just because for those that don't know, you can live your life without tearing your ACLs, but if you have a high, active life, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to want to get your ACL repaired. You're going to want to go through surgery, and you'll also, some people, for those that don't, you can also just get a knee brace, and you can get the actual ones that you'll see athletes wearing, like NFL and college O-line and, defensive and offensive linemen will have sometimes the ACL braces on their knees just to help prevent them, just because they're noticing how of a high risk. They're lightweight, but still a little bulky, and they hurt like Hades when you hit them. So just something I personally just would not recommend. Just go through, do your rehab, go through it, and you're awesome. You're golden afterwards. But just to go back onto this, they do have an excellent negative predictive value that suggests in the U.S. Can serve as an initial screening. So I definitely recommend for the U.S. or the rest of U.S. to get on board because you don't have to go through radiation if you're doing an ultrasound. It's just easy peasy. You do it on your skin. You just use the little wand and you just put the gel on and you get to see. However, by using ultrasounds, it does make it harder because there are tons of muscle groups and bony structures within your knee. So with that being said, there's a lot more to kind of try to see through. So there leaves a bit of human error to be made. And if someone's not fully trained or, still learning, things can happen. Again, it's human error. We all make mistakes at times. But I would rather not be set into the hands of someone that could potentially misread what is happening. Another big benefit is that they are in real time. You get to see what's going on. You and your doctor are having that conversation, saying, and you can see what's going on, versus where if you're in MRIs, you're just sitting there in the room kind of all by yourself. And if you don't have headphones or something, you're just kind of listening to the sound. If you're a heavy sleeper, great. Hopefully you'll take a nice little nap. But again, just because of that low visuality, you can't really see. And it's also a low probability of being able to truly say if there's a partial tear. Again, personally, it's just a thing. If I can't have more of that's a partial tear, and now we can go on with it, I think that you need to get an MRI, but great for an initial screening process. So with the ultrasonographeries, the second article, it talked more about how within the 130 patients, there's still a high sensitivity rate, still at approximately 81.65, and the specificity, I cannot say that word, tongue-tied. It's a hard word for Gwendolyn. But there's an 89 in diagnosing ACL tears with high positive predictivity, making it be roughly 97.8%. Some other great benefits is that because of the no risk of radiation, you can still see what's going on in real time of the stability. And so if you can see that it is a partial tear, you still get to have that suggestion of saying, hey, these ligaments also surrounding, or these muscles, or this bone here is something that needs to be strengthened to either help prevent further tearing or to help with rehab after, if you choose to go through surgery, to things that suggest it's like these are muscle groups that you can start working to strengthen now. So come post-surgery, you have less work to do and it makes it easier for you. And that does make a difference. I bounced back from my first ACL in under 6 months. And my second ACL, because it's your second one, no matter what, your doctors are always going to tell you that you need to take it slower, just to make sure that you're not actually going to end up re-tearing either your other ACL, or you just don't end up tearing the same exact one again. So just making sure that you do your rehab and you are following those instructions. But that's talking about rehab after an ACL tear and surgery. So again, there are great benefits from the ultrasound, especially if you completely tore your ACL. That's awesome. It can see it and you don't have to go through the MRI process. Depending on if that's something your doctor requires, then you will have to. But I believe for it to be at least the new and recommended way to do an initial and the primary screening, highly recommend, and I am on board with using this as a initial screening to see if you either tore your ACL or a possibility of a partial tear. And that is my conclusion, and you guys have a great night.